Hi, everyone. I want to, first of all, thank everybody for being here. And secondly, I want to make sure that everybody can hear me as I start to broadcast here. Um, I know that people are able to hear the music in the background, but I also want to make sure that everybody can hear me. So if someone could just kind of put a question in the chat to let me know that you're able to hear me, that would be great. And then we'll kind of get started. Um, So first of all, thank you very much for letting me know that you can hear me. So let me introduce myself. My name is Kyle Brumbaugh. I am currently the director of the Professional Learning Network at Krause Center for Innovation at Foothill College in Los Altos Hills, California. I've been involved with Google Tools for many, many years. I was part of the first cohort of Google Certified Teachers, now Google Certified Innovators, back in 2006. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary of the program, and so it's been probably the most rewarding professional learning experience that I've had the opportunity to be a part of, and it's really changed me as a teacher and as an educator. So without delaying any further, I kind of want to get into the session and really talking about what it means to hack. So I mean, you get a lot of different definitions here. So the first thing we're going to talk about is defining hacking or hacking one-to-one. We're going to talk about communication and the idea of push versus pull, creation devices and how you can get those into your classroom quickly and easily, how you can reincarnate some of your old hardware, and then developing an ecosystem within your classroom that really makes it easy for you to go and bring in or have a digital workflow. So first of all, what does it mean to hack one-to-one? And so I've got a couple of different ideas here. So throughout this presentation, and you'll be able, through the link, you can get the slides. So I have lots of video embedded into this presentation. I'm not going to play the videos here, but I do want you to be able to go back and get some of these resources without having me to basically broadcast a YouTube video or something like that. So just to define a hack is really a new or an innovative way to accomplish something quickly. So I think it's one of those things that we all do this as teachers. We find a way to make something work and we use it and refine it, and that really is hacking. It's not this idea that we're going to break into a computer system to do something or to break something or to steal some information. It's this idea that we're going to find what's useful for us. I've written a few articles when I was a coach and a teacher, and really talked about the idea that teachers and coaches are the biggest thieves known to mankind. They really find and take things from other people and modify them and make them work, and that's really what we're talking about here. So the two videos on this page really talk about this idea. First of all is that idea of a creative problem solving, a jugaad, so a way to work around something. And then the other video on this page talks about the value proposition and the minimal viable product. So what can you make work right now? Get it out there, let the students in your class or your parents deal with that structure, and then you can modify it as you go along. And that really is the most beneficial part of implementing digital tools into your classroom and into your class workflow. So the next piece is really to kind of get into this idea of communication. So the big plus is, how do you engage parents into your classroom so that they know what's going on in your classroom every single day? And so what are those communication strategies that you have, that you're using, that really can engage the parents? So the first one is a hyperdoc, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with a hyperdoc. So there's a hyperdocs book that you can go out and publish. The link is right there. But the idea of a hyperdoc, or creating something that's a walled garden, because we all have, and all schools have, worries about personal information getting out, and parents not wanting their students' images or video of them getting out onto the internet. So we really want to be sensitive to having this walled garden approach. So HyperDocs is a really quick and easy way to do that. So HyperDocs simply is a Google Doc that has hyperlinks in it to different resources. Through Google Apps, you can restrict who can access each one of those resources. And we'll kind of go down in a minute or two, I'll kind of give you a better way to lock some of those things down. The second one I put there is Blogger. A lot of people look at Blogger as just a very old kind of 15-year-ago tool. But one of the real benefits of Blogger is that a teacher or a principal can use that as a newsletter, embed video, embed a narrated slideshow or a slideshow of what's going on in class. You could put student work there. The big piece with Blogger is that you can now go in and actually, through the settings inside of Blogger, you can control who can see the blog, who can comment on the blog. And that really is the powerful piece. So now you can really make it so only your parents or only your students can see what's going on. Very powerful for students to use Bloggers, that they can now create a portfolio using Blogger and really make it just the teacher and the parent, or maybe the teacher, the parent, and some of the students in the class can read the blog. And the kids get the experience of using a quote-unquote adult tool, but you have all the safeguards there you need to really make it easy for the parents to understand what's going on and that they feel safe about what's going on as well. Google Calendar is another great tool. So just taking Google Calendar and with each event, attaching a Google Doc for this week's newsletter home or for the homework that's going on tonight, and then posting or embedding that calendar into your class website is a real quick and easy way to engage parents, so that parents don't have to look around in Johnny or Susie's backpack for the newsletter that's there. They don't have to dig around for the homework that might be crumpled up down in the bottom. You can provide all of the assets back to your parents quickly and easily by just attaching them to a Google Calendar event, and that you can say, okay, here's where we find everything. It's also great if you're using Google Apps for Ed and using Google Calendar. A lot of teachers will then create appointment slots for parent-teacher conferences and let parents sign up for the spots that they want. It makes it so much easier to schedule those parent-teacher conferences. Google Groups. So if you have the ability to create a Google group within your domain, it allows you to, first of all, share content through the group by just sharing your HyperDocs or sharing the slide decks that you have with parents through the group. So once the parents and you have their email addresses, you can now just share with the group and not have to type in every single parent email address. And it makes it much easier to get all that information back out to parents. So the idea is to connect with the parents and get that information out to them so that they now can become partners with you in their own students' learning. Now, I've had many teachers come to me and say, well, my parents won't give me their email address because they don't want me to send them email, or they don't want to give me their email address for a variety of different reasons. If you start publishing student content in a safe and controlled way where parents know that it is locked down and that it's not out all over the world, you will have parents coming back, well, why didn't I get that? The parents will start to talk to each other saying, well, did you see what Ms. Smith sent home? She sent home, this is the slide deck of all of the pictures the students created in art class this week. And the parents who haven't provided their email address will say, well, why didn't I get that? They'll soon go to you as the teacher and say, I want to get those things, and they will provide their email address to you. So making sure that the content's there and that the content's always fresh and that parents can get to it quickly and easily will just make things much easier for you. So now we've talked about the communication piece and really pulling the parents into the mix so that it's a partnership between parent, student, and teacher. we want to start talking about creation and how can you as the teacher and students start to create content quickly and easily, especially if you don't have, if you're not a one-to-one school, if you don't have a whole class set of Chromebooks, if you don't have, you know, a computer lab that you can get in 2 or 3 hours a day. So the first and primary focus of what teachers should work on is increasing student access to the internet. And smartphones are a quick and easy way to do that. So one of the first things that I, as a teacher, I would do is I would ask the parents for their old smartphones. We're in a society now where parents basically get a new cell phone every 2 to 2.5 years. So get those old cell phones, remove the SIM card from the back of it. I actually have a list. If you email me after the presentation, I can send you a list of the most popular cell phones in the last 5 to 6 years. And I have a spreadsheet that has a link to how to remove the SIM card from it. So you can remove the SIM card, give it back to the parent, and then you can go through and erase the device in front of the parent. And now you have a device that can do a multitude of different things in your classroom. So we know that that's a kind of an untapped resource. We know that 65% of the United States population has a smartphone, and that they're probably going to turn it over in the next couple of years. And that right now we know the percentage of cell phones or smartphones in the United States is pretty equally split between Android and iOS. I just want to get the questions real quickly. Yes, the link for the presentation will be available. Somebody actually put into the chat already that the link for the presentation. I want to make sure that I get to everybody. Okay. So we can go from there. And this next slide, I just wanted to be able to show you what the statistics are on cell phones and smartphone refresh rates. So based upon the statistics, between 45 and 50% of the parents that you have in your classroom each year are going to update their cell phone. And that is pretty equally split between Android and iOS. It's usually about 45, and then about 10% are either Windows phones or Blackberries, but for the most part in the United States, it's iOS and Android, or Apple and Android. So what would you do if half of the parents in your class each year refreshed their cell phones and gave you their old cell phones, gave you those old smartphones to use in your class? What could you do with all of those phones? So a real quick example would be to create a scanning station. So the scanning station that I'm showing you right here is something that I found on Instructables. And it cost me $3 worth of PVC parts and a binder clip to build this. It was super simple, super easy. And now you can take that old cell phone and you can create that scanning station that also becomes a document camera, that also becomes a way to take pictures and then just upload them into a Google Slides presentation. But it's really a way that you can quickly and easily get a lot of content up online right away. So now, how could you manage this in your classroom? Let's say you had 2 or 3 of these in your classroom. How could you manage them? Within both iOS and Android now, there is a Google Drive app that will allow you to scan and will allow you to take a picture and upload it directly to a Google Drive account. If you have Google Apps for Ed in your school district, I would ask the admin, hey, can I have a classroom that is Miss Jones Classroom 2016 at whatever your domain is, and put that account onto the cell phones. and then have all the images from those upload into the Google Drive account for that account. You can create a separate folder that is just a scanned images or photos album within that account, and then share that folder in Google Drive back with all the students as a read-only account, so that the students can't get in and erase things or erase someone else's, but they can get in and actually make a copy of that image and bring it over to their own Google Drive account. So now you have a record of what pictures have been taken or what scans have been taken from that device, while at the same time the students can go and grab those images and use them for all their different projects. So now, what other types of content could you create, or could students create using a cell phone, or what could you use it for? The first one is, I mean, you've got a still image camera and a video camera right there. So it's a great way to document student learning. You could have students take the cell phones out around your school and do plenty of different experiments. Take pictures of what's going on, take pictures of their work, take pictures out, you know, and find images. So do a walk around your campus and take pictures of circles, take pictures of squares if you're doing something for an elementary mathematics geometry unit. You could have students create their own videos. So you could have a cell phone set up in one part of your room where students could actually take video of themselves. You can now have any of the content that you create on that smartphone can now go up into Google Drive, and you have access to docs, sheets, slides, drawings, all of the other tools that are part of the Google Drive suite. Make that phone and that device, and we'll talk about this in just a couple of minutes, that's going to make that tool even more valuable to you. The third thing is there's lots of apps and utilities that you can get that are free for that phone that make that phone even more valuable. So I'm just showing one here where you can get an app where you can measure the distance from where you're standing to where a certain image is. You can also, by pointing or putting the dot at the bottom of the item or the object and then putting it at the top, it will measure the height. So imagine you could send students around school and ask them to measure the tops of buildings or measure lines that you could put up. You could use these for a variety of different experiments. So at KCI, we have a program where we teach next-gen science standards. And one of the things that we do is we do the basic experiment that a lot of other schools do with Alka-Seltzer and water and the small plastic film canisters, and we see that eventually there's enough pressure that builds up and that film canister pops up in the air, and sometimes several feet up in the air. Well, you could use the camera in the phone and some of these apps to measure the height. So now you could actually deepen the learning. It's not so much, you know, did the canister pop up, but you can now say how high, and now you can start to get to the depth of the idea of, well, if we put this much Alka-Seltzer and this much water in, what's the result? And then you could start to measure those things, and you could now, students could now start to put those items into a spreadsheet, and you could do an analysis. Well, the optimum amount of Alka-Seltzer and water into a film canister is X based upon the measurements that we've made, and we want to achieve the highest or the greatest height. And we can do all of those measurements using a cell phone. The next thing that I wanted to present is Google Keep. Now, it's an app that most people don't know much about, but it's probably, if you're not using Google Keep, is probably the most valuable app you can have on your smartphone. And I'll show you why. In Google Keep, you have lots of different functions. So on the page, should be coming up, there we go. On this page, you can now see there's 3 videos. These videos are all between 2 and 3 minutes in length. I did these just over the last few days to really show what Google Keep can do. So the one on the far left is that you can scan documents. So you can actually scan a document, and you'll see a demo of it in that video, where you can scan the document, you tap on the image, and then you click on grab image text, and it will grab all of that text and bring it into a Google Keep note. And then you can press send, and you can send it to a Google Doc, or you can send it to any other app that's on that cell phone that uses text. The middle one talks about how to take a picture, and then using the Google Keep app, you can annotate or draw on top of it. So think about a science experiment where students are taking a picture of something. Maybe it's, you're working with high school students, and you have them take a cell phone, and they actually take the camera and put it right up to the microscope lens and take a picture using Google Keep. Now they can actually draw on top of that image, saying, okay, if this is an amoeba, here's the cell wall, here's the nucleus, here's all the different pieces of whatever they're looking at in the microscope. They can now take that image and dump it right into a Google Doc, and that now can become part of their lab report. That now becomes something that's much more dynamic and living. The last one is the voice to text or speech to text tool within Google Keep. So you can just turn it on and dictate right into it. It will do 2 things. First, it will capture the text. It will take what you say and bring it into text. It will also give you an audio file or a 3GP file. You can take both of those files and upload both of those files into Google Docs, because think about, or Google Drive. Google Drive at this point functions just as a large hard drive, and you can save any kinds of content you want into Google Drive. You can also use those audio files and basically create a link to them in a Google Slides presentation, and have some, you just click on it inside the presentation, and you can have the student narrate each slide, and they can do their narration that way. And it becomes a way that you can even do self-directed learning. Going to speed up a little bit. So now, how can we make those mobile devices do even more? So this next slide, as it pops up, on Android phones, you have a great function. First of all, get one of these USB to micro USB adapters. Sometimes you'll see them called USB OTG or on the go. So with this device, or with this little connector that has, basically it's a standard USB on one side and a micro USB on the other, you can connect a standard keyboard to any mobile device, whether it's a phone or a tablet. Connect the keyboard, and now you're in Google Docs. You can type right in the keyboard, right? You can connect a standard USB mouse. So if you want to connect a mouse to that, so if you're having students actually edit video using a mobile device, whether it's a tablet or a smartphone, you connect that in, you connect the mouse in, and now they can use the mouse to be much more precise in the way they edit video. And then the other thing they can do is they can connect a USB flash drive. So if they've taken a bunch of images with a cell phone that you have in your class, they can now put this in and put a flash drive in, and basically copy their images back over to that USB stick and take them wherever they want to go with them. So that one device, these little adapters cost between $2 and $4 each. It's just a real quick and easy way to make those mobile devices do much, much more. So now we want to kind of get into this new idea of, I have all this old hardware, or the school has old hardware, and how do I make it work for me? So hardware reincarnation, a real quick and easy way, and this is a company, and they charge, you can do a personal license through them for free, but if you're working within a school, you can get this tool called Neverware, and basically it will take an old computer that basically is sitting in the back corner of some classroom gathering dust and make it a Chromebook. The licensing structure that they have is that you can pay $15 a year to convert each device, or you can pay $59 and it basically gives you a license forever for one device. So let's say you put it on one device and that device breaks and you don't want to try to fix it. You can now transfer that license from one device to another device. So it gives you that perpetual license. They have basically the instructions on how to do this for over 200 different computers. And so the videos that are on this page, one shows a case study of a school that basically took their whole computer lab and converted their computer lab into Chromebooks using this tool. And then the smaller one talks about the instructions on how to do this to a device that you may have and may be using. So now kind of get into the idea of how can you develop that ecosystem, and what are the ideas and best practices to develop that ecosystem that you have, and how can you make it work the most effectively for you and your students? So the first piece of this is that Google has this nice little secret sauce for you, is that from a teacher's perspective, you want to reduce the friction, you want to make it easier, you want to reduce that transition time, increase the students' time on task, support the struggling students, have enrichment for those kids who have already learned it and gone ahead. You can do that now if you're using Google Apps for Ed, because now it has these connectors to all these 3 third-party apps. So in this example, I kind of have this sign in with Google, and you can see that I have that Screencastify and an awesome screenshot, and Pixlr Editor and PictoChart and Powtoon. Those are just a few of the wide variety of tools that you have access to with Google Apps, and having more devices that can access Google Apps for Ed is just going to make it that much more valuable. On the student side, you can allow students to choose how they document that they've mastered the content standards. You can create managed peer review process. You can create an information synthesis so that they kind of go through the process so you can see that they actually understand the content. It's a very valuable tool to be able to use. And then as you get to use more and more tools, you start to develop an ecosystem of all of the different things that you use within the suite. So on this slide, you can really kind of see is that across the top, you can see that Google Classroom is a great connector, but then also Google Sites is. I mean, you can start to put all of your content there, and then Google Drive now becomes a way to capture all of that. So if you look at the idea of being able to publish out to community and to families, you can use Google Classroom's feature to push out to parents. You can use Blogger, you can use Google Calendar. But then across the continuum, teachers and students can now exchange work in all of these different contexts. And these are just a few of the different ways. All of those apps that are logging with Google make it much easier, because now you don't have to remember extra usernames and passwords. That it's there, it's ready to go. You can, if the kids have access to a Chrome browser, either on a smartphone, on a Chromebook, or on just a regular computer, you have a way to connect all of these different apps together. The only limits are the limits that you place upon yourselves, and how you can share those tools back out with everyone. So most people, or most teachers that I've worked with, and most presentations that I've done, I kind of go through and I kind of give this quote, is that there's a big difference between teaching 30 years and teaching 1 year 30 times. And I really feel that this is kind of it's a strong statement that as teachers, we need to continue to grow and change. And I think if we don't, we're really doing a disservice to our kids and to the parents who send those students to us to really get an education. So I'm willing to answer any questions there. I'm going to kind of click through the rest of the slides here pretty quickly, because they kind of go through the Google Training Center. And I'd like to just say that Krause Innovation Center, where I currently work at Foothill College, we are a Google Apps for Ed partner, and we provide all of these services to schools and districts. If you want to go through a boot camp or a certification exam, we can facilitate that for you as well. And I mentioned in the beginning, I was part of the first cohort of Google Certified Teachers, which are now known as Google Certified Innovators. And we just celebrated the 10th anniversary of that program. It is probably, as I mentioned, probably the best professional learning program that I've ever been associated with. And then the Google Certified Trainer Program. So people who have passed the level 1 and level 2 exams can then apply to become a Google Certified Trainer. And then Google also provides the Transformation Center that schools and districts can use to help them transform from where they're at to a school that really does use digital tools to a wide degree. They have a professional development package that you can contact Google about. And then they also have a benefit from now actually going through this education on air. You can actually get a break. The level 1 certification exam is usually $10. You can get it for $5. And then find your local Google Educator group and join, because there's a lot of people who can share a lot of great ideas with you. So with that, I want to thank you, and I'm more than willing to answer questions, or you can send me questions via email about any of the things that were in the presentation. And I'd like to thank all of you for attending.